last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a brand new edition of Dark Matters Radio. My name is Don Ecker. I am your host, and all of it, every scintilla, is being brought to you courtesy of KGRA Radio, your contact point to the paranormal and those darker shadows in the corner. Tonight, I've got a great show. A guy that I've known for a very long time, somebody I consider a friend, is back once again. Mr. Walter Bosley, who has a very colorful career. Not only was he an officer in the United States Air Force and in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, he's a former intelligence analyst that worked with the FBI. I've interviewed over the years Walter quite a few times. Walter, it is a great pleasure to have you back. How in the heck are you doing, my friend?
Pretty good, Don. It is great to be back. A lot of wacky stuff has happened in UFO world since we talked last, I think. So it's especially good to be back talking with you. How are you?
You betcha. Oh, well, hey, look, bouncing off walls, Walter, to be honest, bouncing off walls with this lockdown and all the other craziness going on in the world today. I had a meeting. I'm on the board of directors for our local area association here. We had a meeting last night, of course, via Zoom. And, I felt like the ninth wheel on a three-wheeled tricycle there. So,
Yeah.
That's just about what the heck has been going on. But yeah, hey, by the way, you and I were kind of chatting on Facebook the last day or so. One of the things that I've been doing, and I would presume you probably have also been doing, since this whole pandemic business, I've been watching a heck of a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you were up there also talking about some films you've watched.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you watched, what the heck was that? Because I saw it actually myself a few days ago. The Vast Night of the Universe, or
Vast is the Night.
Vast is, yeah, well, one of those damn things. Anyway, great parts of it, I gotta be honest, was like watching paint dry. But on the other hand, yeah. But on the other hand, I found some of the characters a bit intriguing. Mm-hmm. Not that saved the movie, but
no, the actors, the lead actors, were very good. You almost feel bad that they were wasted in this film. The lead guy who plays the character Everett, you're going to see him in more stuff, I'm convinced, because he was dynamic, he was natural, he was very good. And the young lady who plays the girl that works at the switchboard and is his friend. She was really good too. I mean, the actors in the film were good. The production values were fine. They look good. It looked like a good production. The problem was I think the concept as executed in the script. It was my son Austin, who's pursuing his film career. He put it great when he said he was really disappointed. He didn't like it either, and he's only 29, so it's not just us old guys who are being curmudgeonly. He said the bad thing about the film is that it's a radio play.
Actually, you're right. That's exactly what in the heck it was.
Yeah, it's just you're watching scenes of people talking about something extraordinary that happened, and they're not showing it to you. And it's just that's not what film is about. Film is the visual medium, and it's pretty.
Well,
obvious.
they had a budget of probably $73, Walter, which
and that, believe me, I can sympathize with that, but there's still maybe they should have considered doing another story or something, because it just they didn't. They didn't maximize it. I mean, there's things they could have done that would have been a more dynamic, more interesting film to watch. But like you said, watching paint dry, you go through about 24 minutes of the movie. It seemed, I believe, as I recall, that before anything to do with the story seems to happen. And that's just not good writing.
Well, about 2003 or 2004, I watched a film that was on the Sundance, I think it was Sundance Channel, called Bubba Hotep.
Yes.
Now, I gotta tell you, when I saw that title, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is that? But I watched it. Bruce Campbell was in it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people either love Bruce Campbell or they think he's superfluous. Okay. I happen to like Bruce Campbell. He's got a quirkiness to him, and some of the stuff he's done, just really was slap your belly funny. But in this movie, the movie itself in parts I found hilarious. For anybody that has never seen this film, Bubba Hotep, let me give you the setup. In current day Mud Creek, Texas, at a rest home, is this guy who claims to be Elvis Presley. And there's another guy in there who claims to be JFK, President Jack Kennedy, but he's a black man. And if you throw into the mix a supernaturally charged, evil, ancient Egyptian mummy, there's a setup. Now, sounds absolutely insane, right? Well, yeah, it is.
It's great.
But before the end of the movie, the first time I watched it, and Walter, I've seen that now probably 12.5 times. I bought it, and I've got it here. And I just watched it again the other night because, we were locked in. The whole county here in L.A. was on lockdown curfew at 6 p.m., and I'm bouncing around the house, and I go, what the heck am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to go through my DVDs, and I pulled out Bubba Hotep, and that movie just makes me feel good. Now, it's a commentary in some ways on how we as a society treat our warehouse shelved elderly in many cases. And also, in many ways, it's so ludicrous, you just laugh out loud because it's so damn funny. And the playoff between Bruce Campbell and Ozzie Davis
Yeah.
who is JFK. By the end of the movie, honest to God,
Yeah.
you believe they both are who they say they are. And I take it, Walter, you've seen the movie,
Oh
right?
yeah, numerous times. Yeah, it's one of my son and I really enjoy that film.
Oh my God, yeah. Now I got to tell you, I've got a signed poster from the producer Don Coscarelli of Bubba Hotep that I've got actually hanging in my house.
Cool.
And my buddy Mark Center actually got that for me. And we tried to get Coscarelli on this show, as a matter of fact. I would love to interview him. Unfortunately, that's never happened. Tried to also get Reggie Bannister. Now, another movie that I gotta be honest gave me nightmares about 40 years ago from Coscarelli was a movie called Phantasm. Have you ever seen that, Walter?
This is going to blow your mind. Even after all these years, I have not seen Phantasm yet, and it is streaming, of course, right now on Amazon. So I'm probably going to end up watching it pretty soon here. But I have never seen Phantasm.
Oh my God! Oh wow!
I'm familiar with it, of course, but I just haven't taken the opportunity to watch it. I'm going to have to watch it now.
Oh yeah, that you definitely are going to have to watch that at least once. Now, I'll say this: in all the years since I first saw it, and I haven't seen it recently, but I can't honestly say how well it held up. But it's not only a horror movie, but there's a lot of psychological business going on in that. And at any rate, this was a Coscarelli movie also. But at the end of Bubba Hotep, you'll remember, Walter, that he promised in the last credits that Bubba Hotep will return, and Bubba Hotep and the Nosferatu vampire women or some crap like that, right?
Yeah.
Never happened. He never did it. And unfortunately, Bruce Campbell, and hey, I got to tell you, now I'm certainly no movie critic, but I know what I like. I know what I don't like.
Right.
And I honestly think that this movie was Bruce Campbell's finest performance ever.
Oh, I would agree. He's fantastic in the Elvis role. He really, if folks have never seen Bubba Hotep and you like Bruce Campbell, well, that would be a surprise if you haven't seen it and you like him. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's really an incredible performance of his. It's a comic performance, but it's the nuances.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. You believe that here is a man who is in his. Now remember, this came out not quite 20 years ago.
Right.
About 17 years ago, roughly.
Yeah.
And so he was 17 years younger. But you believe he's in at least his 70s.
Right.
Then the makeup is superb. You believe, he comes across as this infirm guy. Ozzie Davis, I thought, was stellar in this.
Oh yeah, well, he's Ossie Davis. He'd been around and was a veteran, and he was so good in it. Those two together, they played off each other good, and the concept was funny, and it's a much, for those who haven't seen it, it's actually a much better movie than it might sound to some people.
Yes.
Elvis, JFK and a mummy. What the heck? No, it's actually it's pretty funny, and it's good too.
Yeah. Now we were talking, and why are we talking movies tonight? Now, if Mark Center were on here, Mark is our movie expert, but he's not. So what in the heck has anybody been doing other than that? There's not a heck of a lot you can do, right?
Right. Yeah. I've been doing something fun that I think a lot of people are probably doing, but my son and I and best friend from high school all these years down in San Diego. We've been watching movies together via Zoom. You know, my son lives in Redondo Beach. I'm out here in the IE, and Brian's in San Diego, and we get together. We watch the same movie. You know, we each stream it at home, and we watch movies together. We've done 2 or 3 of those.
No kidding.
Yeah, last night, was it last night or the night before? I think it was last night. My son and I watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And before that, he and Brian and I watched all the Indiana Jones movies. We had kind of a 3 or 4 nights in a row kind of thing. And even one night, my son was at a drive-in that was running an Indiana Jones movie. And he FaceTimed or Zoomed from his car at the drive-in while I was at home and my buddy was at his house hundreds of miles away. And so that's a way that we've been, getting together and being, able to watch movies together. But even when I'm not doing that, I'm just going through, I watch, here's one that I think you'll like and you'll remember from 1973, Electra Glide in Blue.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yes, Robert Blake, before he turned into an alleged murderer. Yes.
That's right, yeah. Before he did David Lynch, Lost Highway, that weird but wonderful character. But yeah.
Now, I'm gonna give you a movie, Walter, and I mentioned it to you earlier today. Are you familiar with the film The Objective?
No, I'm not.
Well, let me tell you what, this movie is actually right up your alley, okay? The Objective. It's done by the same people that did the Blair Witch Project.
Sorry, I had something fell. Hold on. I'm on the air on a radio show. Sorry about that. They're fixing a shelf back there. Good Lord. Okay, go ahead. The Objective.
Yeah, it's the same people that did the Blair Witch Project, which I got to tell you, I've never seen that. But this movie, somebody had mentioned it to me. The time frame that the movie takes place in is just 2 months after the 9/11 attacks.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes place about November of 2001. And an American intelligence satellite picked up what the NSA and the CIA believed to be nuclear material in the mountains of Afghanistan. Okay.
Okay.
Now, they send this CIA case officer there who had served in Afghanistan or the area during the Soviet Union's occupation. So he knew the area, he has contacts there, and he's looking to make contact with a cleric that he knew that had been friendly with the American forces. Now, a lot of people may not realize that during that conflict in the 1980s, we, through covert means, gave the insurgents in Afghanistan a lot of equipment and a lot of training that unfortunately many of them later used against us.
Right.
But when they were in conflict with the Russians, okay, we had a lot of people over there. Now, when he is sent over there, he is given a special forces team to go into the mountains with him in order to locate this cleric. Now, Walter, all I will tell you, because I do not want to give away the ending of this, but it involves mysterious, unknown objects and lights in the air, inexplicable events that happen on the ground. It is about, and when you see these American Special Forces guys, actually several of them were military veterans with special training.
Oh, wow.
This is a very compelling, exciting, and very mysterious film.
Okay.
The Objective. So, and for anybody else out there looking for something to do during this crazy time, track down that movie and watch it. It's vastly underrated, and I'll tell you, it's one heck of a story.
I got to check this out. You've intrigued me. This definitely sounds like something I want to see.
So, besides movies, what have you been doing? Anything?
Well, I have been doing my part of a book project I'm working on with another researcher, a young fellow who had been asking my advice and input on some research he was doing, and his research was so interesting and intriguing that I suggested that he do a book on it. And he's never done a book, so we got to talking, and I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you what, you provide the research and we'll analyze it together, and I'll write up the draft, and we'll do this little project together. It's going to be his first book project.
What's it on?
Well, we're being very secretive. I never I don't like to let cats out of the bag on the books I'm working on, and since it's his idea, I don't feel at liberty to say what it is.
Oh, okay, sure.
Let me put it this way. It has to do with authors. Well, how do I? It's going to be very interesting. It would be very interesting now if we released it, but it's going to get even more interesting as we get closer to the election.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And yet it's going to be interesting to people that are interested in the usual weird stuff that like I like to write about and talk about. It's going to be a fun book. It's going to be a short book. We're going to keep it around 100 pages. And,
well, speaking of short books or even novellas, I was whining a little bit ago about the fact that Don Coscarelli never made the sequel to Bubba Hotep, right?
Right.
Now, Bubba Hotep was originally a novella written by an author, a writer down in Texas by the name of Joe R. Lansdale.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, he's a very entertaining author. I find him very quirky, okay? And the other day after I watched that movie, just on a whim, I was doing some research on it, and lo and behold, I discovered that Lansdale himself wrote a sequel to Bubba Hotep that is actually a prequel. Well, It was up on Amazon, and it had a Kindle version, so I bought it, downloaded it, and I read it over the course of an evening and the early morning hours of the next day. And so I finally feel somewhat fulfilled.
Would it have made a great movie too?
Yeah, actually, I think it would have. Now, Bruce Campbell. Now, we both agree he did a stellar job in that movie. He, for whatever reason, did not want to reprise that role.
I saw that, and that's really interesting because it's one of his most loved roles of his by his fans. I can't think of a Bruce Campbell fan that does not love his Elvis in Bubba Hotep. And when I saw that, I just wondered, okay, what's going on there?
Yeah, so actually, I got to tell you, I did too. Now, there's another film out there with Campbell in it and Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in the original Star Trek, called Moontrap. Are you familiar with that movie?
It doesn't come to mind, although vaguely it seems like I was aware that Walter Koenig was involved in it, but I didn't know Bruce Campbell was involved in it.
Yes, they were two astronauts, okay? And this took place. The movie came out about 1987.
Oh, wow.
So it was after Apollo, but they were on a They were on an orbital mission, okay, in a shuttle. And coming in from a very oblique, weird orbit was an object that turned out to be what could only be a very ancient spaceship, dead, of course.
Okay.
And it was pretty beaten up. When I say beaten up, they discovered that it had holes in the hull of it. It looked like somebody had shot the hell out of it or whatever. So Walter Koenig, who is the commander of the mission, does an EVA over to this craft to take a close look at it. And he ends up bringing some items back from the derelict wreck. Then they land. They bring it down, and NASA, of course, they're at the NASA headquarters. And one of these things is actually an alien artifact with artificial intelligence, and it comes alive and creates havoc.
Okay.
So they discover that apparently it was somehow connected with the moon. So they end up going on a bit later on a lunar mission back to the moon. And that's where things get very interesting. And it's a heck of another very, unknown movie, Walter. And it's, it's one of those that kind of slipped through the cracks, but I've watched it a number of times, and I got to say I really enjoyed it.
I gotta search for this and this other one, The Objective. I gotta find both of these and take a look, because and I'm sure you've experienced this too. Guys like us and most nerdy movie fans, we've seen most of the stuff that's popular that's been out there. So you kind of look for those obscure treasures.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's always great when you hear about something. I love being told about a movie I didn't know existed. That's just wonderful.
Well, it's one of those guilty little pleasures, especially in a time like this. But hey, you and I have another passion. I've been involved in it for decades now, the UFO question,
yes,
going back to when my wife and I published UFO magazine. We've done, over the years, you and I have done a number of shows about that. Now, from the time that I've been with UFO magazine, I've butted heads with just about everybody over this subject, Walter. Mm-hmm. Skeptics, government people, NASA people, military intelligence people, the lunatics on either side of the equation, the I want to believers and the people that wouldn't say boo if they had a flying saucer land in front of them.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is I never thought I would see a crack in the armor like has happened in the last couple of years. What do you think about all this? And I'm talking about Harry Reid's admission back in December of 2017 about he secured funds for a Pentagon secret project investigating unidentified aerial phenomena. The To the Stars group, which have, among others in it, a top engineer from the Lockheed Skunk Works, a former Undersecretary of State for Intelligence, Hal Puthoff, that had worked for the CIA. I mean, come on. What the hell is going on here?
Well, I'm in the camp that is, I find the TTSA thing a little dubious. I'm known to have been, to be, a little askance at that and critical of it. From my perspective, I think there's a little bit of sleight of hand going on. I think the the intel slice of the national security community saw an opportunity to control the narrative, to play perception management games by using Tom DeLonge's concept and vision of TTSA. So my personal issue with it is, to me, it has amounted to little more than a promotional organization for their entertainment arm. It seems like that, oh, look, the Navy's talking about their videos again, always right before they're going to release something. It happened last year, right before they released the TV series featuring Luis Elizondo, and we're about due for the next season of that TV series. So lo and behold, we're hearing and it turns out to really just be a rehash of the same old tired thing about this Tic Tac video and all that. It's my personal opinion that the United States Navy was testing a technology, an advanced technology, and people don't want to hear that. And the very people that say, oh, they would never do that, are the people that don't know what they're talking about or have a stake in pushing this as something extraordinary. But most people who know what they're talking about and have been in that world, and you understand this, they see what I'm seeing, that oh, okay, we know that they test technologies, and we know they test concepts. They test tactics and such all the time on our own personnel, to see the true natural human reaction. Okay, I point out again that this squadron of aircraft that saw this thing, the Tic Tac in question, they were on a routine off the coast patrol, and the airplanes were unarmed. Okay, very similar to the Rendlesham situation. The security forces were just happened to be told to not take their weapons. In case somebody flips out or whatever. But from my perspective, I think that.
Well, yeah, but to be fair,
yeah.
Okay, they were in the UK. We both know how goofy the UK is about firearms.
Oh yeah. Overseas carrying of firearms, yeah, that is a different game. You're right about that. We've both done it, of course, obviously, but in that particular case, on their installations, they usually would have been carrying. In the case of Rendlesham, now in the case of the Tic Tac thing, I think the U.S. Navy was just testing something, and they wanted to get a real world, human reaction from our pilots. And I really think that's what the Tic Tac amounts to. I think in the long run, we're going to find out that that's what it amounts to. And, so that's my position on the TTSA thing. But in general, big picture, I have found the last couple of years to be in some ways unfortunate for, people truly interested in real UFOs, because I'm a believer. I finally had my honest to goodness bona fide UFO experience in 2014. But I was a believer before then.
Wait a minute. I didn't know about that.
Oh, I think we talked about it last time I was on. I think I told you.
No, wait. Is that the video that?
Yeah, I sent you the video, which of course my camera only picked up one spot of light, dropping another spot of light. When our eyes were looking at this object that I could draw for you and describe for you. Yeah, it was that. But I was, of course, personally convinced of UFOs long before then. Years and years before then. But, to finally have, my own sighting and encounter, just kind of puts the cherry on top of the whole thing. So, I definitely believe that there are civilizations out in space off this planet that can travel space and that have come here and do come here. I'm convinced of that. It only takes one to prove. And I think we're being played with again. And here you have some guys with the intel community background, that are, golly, there they are involved in it. So I come from the position of being rather skeptical of that whole thing.
Let me ask you this. Now, about roughly a year or so ago, a story broke I originally discovered it
Mm-hmm.
when Richard Dolan put up a second video
Mm-hmm.
decrying his skeptics. He had made a statement. He had come across some information, called it the smoking gun.
Yeah.
Okay, he was attacked. Now I didn't know any of this until I saw his second video.
Yeah.
So I watched it, then I tracked down the first video, and I ended up writing a paper on it, and it involved scientist Dr. Eric Davis
Yeah.
and Admiral Thomas R. Wilson. Did you read my paper?
Yes, I recall reading your paper. Yeah.
Okay. Now, that was a hell of a story. Okay. And of course, there were denials all the way around
Mm-hmm.
of naturally, but I had a leg up on a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that I know, Gary Beckham, okay, who's been tracking the intelligence bunch for years now, wrote a series of books on it. His first one, which came out, he's got a website, Walter. I don't know if you've ever been up there, starstreamresearch.org.
No, but I ordered one of his books on your recommendation, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Well, which one did you order?
I think it was the first one that you told me.
Spies, Lies, and Polygraph?
What's another title?
Well, Quantum of Strangeness.
I think it was Spies, Lies, and Polygraphs. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the one.
Okay. Well, now, all the usual suspects he has tracked down over the years.
Uh-huh.
People like Hal Puthoff,
Yeah.
Ron Pandolfi, Kit Green, Richard Doty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole line of these guys, their shenanigans. Dan Smith,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who for years has had his nose buried up Ron Pandolfi's, okay, backside. Pandolfi has a gas pain. Dan Smith squeaks. All right. That's just how it is. Now, as I was doing my paper on the Wilson Davis thing,
Yeah.
I was plowing once again through all those books. And you know what? I came across another name that when I originally read it didn't connect, but suddenly it did. Christopher Mellon, who happens to be former Undersecretary of State for Intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the primary guys in the To the Stars Academy thing.
Yes.
And I'm going, oh my, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Uh-huh.
We've been fed a bill of goods, my friend.
I think so. I think so. And you know, last year I was, and again, I like to be honest, I reserved my opinion when Dolan was going on and on about the Wilson papers last year. And when he reached a point where he was just all in and telling people they're on the wrong side of history if they doubt these things and all that, I'm like, come on, Rich. You know, so I was somewhat critical.
Well, I put on my detective hat when I started to research all of that. And I connected and talked to a heck of a lot of people. I talked to several physicists. I talked to some attorneys that were involved in this. One of the primary conduits, I talked to some news reporters, one of them being Billy Cox. Now, anybody that's been in this field any length of time know that Billy Cox, for decades now, have been on the UFO beat. He's a genuine bona fide reporter working or was working for the Sarasota Herald down in Florida. He knows where a heck of a lot of bodies are buried, and he had done some initial reporting on this years before the Eric Davis and Wilson thing broke. Now, in Beckham's books, he had already made a number of these connections. Now, apparently, Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, later achieved a lot of notoriety because of his attempts at psychic phenomena coming back from the moon. The organization that Mitchell put together, he, of course, passed away about 4 years ago, roughly. But a very, very well-known figure, and somebody that believed that, yes, extraterrestrials had not only come here, but some of them are probably still here. Now, he connected with Thomas Wilson back in the 90s when Wilson was the director of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Right.
Now, this is where it gets weird, and I used my detective hat. Apparently, Mitchell got him to promise that he would try to track down any evidence that somewhere within the bowels of government, somebody was willing to admit that we had recovered technology. And Wilson started digging, and somehow, and of course we will never know today, Walter, somehow he discovered that out here on the West Coast, there is an aero defense corporation that allegedly has their hands on recovered technology.
Okay.
And he felt, as director of the DIA, he should be read into this.
Yeah.
Well, he started kicking up a fuss, had called these people, whoever they were, and they told him they couldn't talk about it on the phone, come out to the West Coast. So he did. He got out here. They took him into the cone of silence, into a vault, where they basically told him he didn't have a damn need to know. Go peddle your papers somewhere else. And he said, but wait a minute. I'm the head of the DIA. Doesn't matter. You're not read into it. You don't have a need to know. And basically sent him home with his hat in his hand. And he was pissed.
Right.
Well, when he got back and he started to kick up a fuss, somebody pulled him aside and, in essence, said, Admiral, do you like those stars on your shoulder? Are you looking forward to your pension?
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, they basically gave him the bottom line, and he backed off. But this project would have been an SAP project, Walter.
Yep.
And an SAP project, which, incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what that is, that means Special Access Program. And they are so secret that even acknowledging that such a program exists is a felony, is against the law.
Yeah, having experience personally with those, I was never allowed to say even that acronym, that I worked in a SAP. And then, of course, a couple of years ago, it became bandied about in the media.
Right.
I've worked in two.
So the bottom line is, Walter, I wouldn't doubt for a second that they have something. And they have it under wraps.
That's just it. I do think we have something. I do think these kinds of things have happened. What I think goes on, though, is in our community, in UFO media, games and perception management games are played with that. We have stuff thrown at us that is not something from another world, but it's convenient to let people think it's from another world. So they play with that theme with the UFO public and the community, in order to achieve whatever it is they're wanting to achieve. And and you know how it's played. It's the alphabet agencies. There's multi-layers to this, and each layer is very convincing.
Well, when you were with AFOSI, did you ever have anything cross your desk that might have been involved with unidentified aerial phenomena?
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
No. And I guarantee you it was our human Air Force technology.
So it was our stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason, in case, there's always people out there, well, why would an OSI agent? Because what I did specifically in counter-espionage operations dealt in something called passage material. And that involves always classified information and technology, and it has to be the good stuff. And so for 3 years, while at Wright Pat, that was a daily reality in my job as an OSI agent, is that stuff coming across my desk, so to speak, being in my safes, being in my operational files. Personally.
Okay, you were at Wright Pat.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question for you. Now, I have an audio recording of Senator Barry Goldwater. And for you folks that you may have heard the name, you don't know who the guy was. In 1964, Barry Goldwater was the Republican presidential nominee, running for the office of president. He ran against President Lyndon Johnson very shortly after President Kennedy had been assassinated. And Barry Goldwater was also a major general in the United States Air Force, a reserve officer. Okay. Now, he was also best buddies with General Curtis LeMay. Now, LeMay at that time ran the whole U.S. Air Force, was one of the generals at the Pentagon, one of the Joint Chiefs, and he was the guy. He had the nickname "Bomb him back to the Stone Age, LeMay."
Yeah.
He was the guy that ran the air war against Japan, and initiated the fire bombings of Japan, trying to get them to surrender. And it wasn't until we dropped a nuclear warhead that they finally saw the light. But the guy was about as tough as they came. Cigar chomping, cigar smoking guy. Would tell you exactly where the bear shit in the buckwheat. I mean, he was just that kind of guy. Now, Barry Goldwater had an interest and a fascination. Now, there's a point to all this, Walter. Had a fascination with the flying saucer question. And he had heard all the rumors. Now, this is in the audio recording I have to this day of Barry Goldwater. He was on a radio show talking about it. And he said he went to his buddy, Kurt LeMay, and he said, "Kurt, I understand that the Air Force has the remains of a flying saucer they picked up at a place at Wright-Patterson called the Blue Room. Now, I'd like to get in there and see it." Well, Goldwater, who's a senior ranking Republican senator in the Congress of the United States, who was the Republican nominee to run for president, was a major general in the Air Force Reserve, said that General LeMay came unglued on him and used language that he couldn't repeat on the radio. And LeMay ended up saying, and don't you, by God, ever ask me about that again. Now, my question to you, is there a blue room in Right Pat?
I have no personal knowledge. It would not surprise me because, it's a base with vaults. Of course, it came out in the 90s during the, when they were, I think after the peace talks. Remember the peace talks having to do with the, I believe, the Kosovo War and all that?
Right.
It was finally, I think, revealed to the public for the first time, the underground facilities. When I arrived at Right Pat, and I was given my first tour of base by one of my guys who worked for me in my branch. As we're driving, I first learned about this. This was in '96. I first learned about the underground at Right Pat because I saw there's a part of base where you see those air vents that look like mushrooms?
Yeah.
That are on roofs? Yeah. I saw those on the ground, and I asked, well, what's under there? And that's when I was told about the underground facilities, which have since been on, I think, a History Channel documentary. You can look it up and see it on TV now. But back in the 90s, it was something that was still kind of just coming to the public consciousness. Now, if there's that, and they'll eventually, 15 years later, tell, a TV show about it. It's been my experience. What else would they have at that base, that we don't know about, that we're not hearing about? And I would venture to say that this so-called blue room, whatever it actually is probably underground. It's not I doubt it's in some hangar. It's probably underground.
And in 1947, if, in fact, the Army Air Force, this was before the U.S. Air Force became its own separate entity. Wright-Patterson was in existence then, of course, shortly after World War II. Would it make sense to you that they would have taken something that at the time would have been of extreme strangeness back to Wright-Pat?
Oh, absolutely. That's where they would have taken it. That's where the Air Force labs are. That's where the eggheads, the scientists are. That's the heart of Air Force research is Wright-Patterson, and it has been since the beginning of, Air Force days, going back to the Army Air Corps, of course, when it was Wright Field. So it's very legitimate that these things would be put there, would be taken there.
What's your personal feeling about that, Walter? Do you think that the Army Air Force picked something strange up in 1947 out at Roswell, New Mexico?
No, it's my personal opinion that what that was America's first attempt to put man in space. And, of course, I think it ended tragically on return. But I think the fact that they even did it and whatever they gleaned from it made it immediately clear that in these early days of the Cold War, the fact that, again, whatever worked and whatever they gleaned from it, I think it became clear to them, okay, this is something we need to put a clamp down because this could be decisive between us and the Russians, And,
well, I got to tell you up front, I totally disagree with you. But at that time, the only real missile technology we had was that recovered Nazi stuff, the V2.
Well, that they were, and then they were building their own V2s, but you had, and I lay this out in my book, Shimmering Light, you had the engineers, not just the rocket guys, but all the various aerospace engineers. You had the, the aerospace medicine guy. What a lot of Americans don't know is the story of man in space starts with U.S. Army Air Corps aerospace medicine. It was the aerospace doctors who were the first guys involved with putting man in space, and this desire dates back to the 1920s.
Okay, hold your thought there, because we're at the top of the hour. Believe it or not, we just ate up an entire hour, Walter.
That went by fast.
Yes, and we will pick up there when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, my very special guest, longtime friend, Mr. Walter Bosley. And who knows where else we're going to sojourn tonight for the end of the show. This is Dark Matters Radio, brought to you by KGRA Radio, your contact point to the paranormal. And hey, we'll be back. Stick around.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to a civilian job. These extraordinary men and women bring more than just teamwork and inspiration to the workplace. They bring proven world-class job skills. And to ensure proper placement, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right job fit. Talented, skilled, and eager to get back to work, you have the opportunity to hire a seasoned veteran. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home, the brave.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Whether it's a natural disaster or one single child suffering from illness, the American Red Cross stands ready to supply blood when it's most needed. But blood is a perishable product. Therefore, it must continuously be replenished. You can safely donate blood every 56 days. The need is constant and patients are waiting. Call your American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE to schedule your life-saving appointment. Please give blood today. Patients are depending on you.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
More ways for you to make contact. Live Discord chat rooms, live talk radio, live video cast, toll-free HD phones, and coming this year, live streaming TV, giving you more ways to make contact. Your KGRARadio.com.
And we are back with hour number 2. My guest tonight, Mr. Walter Bosley. And Walter, right before we went to break, you were talking about space medicine back in 1947. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Where I was getting to was what another thing a lot of folks don't know is that Operation Paperclip. A lot of people assume that primarily was motivated by atomic bomb development, or to get Werner von Braun and the rocket guys. And it indeed was to get Werner von Braun and the rocket guys. But Operation Paperclip, if you dig into the history of it, it was really started by Colonel Harry Armstrong and the Army Air Corps aerospace medicine guys. They wanted to get the German aerospace scientists, medicine scientists and doctors, because Armstrong and the guys like him, including, let me see if I get this name right, Otis Benning, I think. Anyway, who served under him and then went on to become the commander of U.S. Air Force Aerospace Medicine. They were dedicated, again, putting man in space. Now, people say, well, they were doing that primarily so that, as they built bombers that went higher altitude. No, that was a side product. The goal was always put man in space from the 1920s. And the technology that they got from that pursuit is what allowed us to put air crews in at higher altitude. But the goal, the objective was always man in space, and including that dream and vision of putting men on the moon. And this dates back even to the Operation Paperclip days. So people don't realize how much of a strong drive this was in these things we were doing during the war era and right after the war. And that's part of why, personally, I'm convinced that there was something to do with that going on with Roswell. And due to the context of the times, it's like, if people want to think it's little green men, let them think that. Oh, yeah, it's a flying saucer, because they just didn't want the Russians to know that, we were trying to do that, which the Russians were probably thinking about trying to do it themselves with their Nazi scientists that they had captured, of course, as we know. So it's really, when you go back and look at these things, how much putting man in space was involved in these events, which, most people don't even think, came onto the scene until, right before the Kennedy administration. The Project Mercury, the famous Project Mercury that the film and the book, The Right Stuff, was all about, and, putting our first 7 astronauts into space. That was a U.S. Air Force manned space program. NASA didn't even exist. The U.S. Air Force was developing the suits. I know for a fact, the history, and that's what my dad's role was in Mercury. Was his unit at George Air Force Base was doing the ground testing for that silver Mercury suit in 1958. And, so this was the capsule, everything. It was a U.S. Air Force program. And then in October of 58, NASA was stood up, and Mercury was then, made more public, and it became a NASA program. I argue that we have no reason to assume that the Air Force stopped with their pursuit of putting man in space. I argue, it's my suggestion, hypothesis, that the Air Force continued classified essentially with the same technology, a parallel program. And so when you look at the context from the 1920s, the aerospace medicine guys, you look at which German engineers were right there in New Mexico, you look at which American engineers were right there in aerospace medicine guys, they were all right there. They were all being thrown all the money and resources that they wanted and needed, and they were under very tight security. When you put guys who can design spacecraft, whether it be a rocket or whatever else, a space plane, okay, or something, and you put them together with the guys who know how to design, or the guys that are into designing the life support, okay, and you give them money and you give them secrecy, what do you think they're going to try? Of course they're going to say, we'll design and build the thing. You guys come up with some type of high altitude, outer space life support system, and we got plenty of pilots here that have the guts to get on this thing and be the crew. We got plenty of guys to be the crew.
But yet the Russians still managed to beat us into space with Sputnik in 57.
With their little ball satellite, yeah. That's 57. Remember, what I'm saying is the U.S. Air Force was working on Mercury in 58. Sure, the Russians beat us into space with the little ball, and they put Gagarin into space. What year was that? 59 or 60?
60, I believe.
Yeah, 60. Yeah, sure. What does that tell you? Of course, they'd been working on it the whole time too. You know that the Gagarin thing didn't happen in a vacuum over there. The Gagarin thing didn't. Hey, we did Sputnik. Now let's put. No. I guarantee you, the Russians were working on putting it. And for all we know, Gagarin was just the first one they put up there and brought back alive. Right. We know the Russians back then, the Soviets, would lie about how many they killed. So I argue that they tried it before Gagarin. Gagarin was just the one they could point to because it was a success. That's my opinion.
Now let me ask you another question. Now back in the 90s, and I had briefly correspondence with retired Lieutenant Colonel Phil Corso. His book, co-written with Bill Burns, came out, the Roswell book. And in there, Corso talked about something called Project Horizon, which he claimed was a Pentagon plan to put a manned lunar base up there, staffed by American military personnel.
Yeah.
What do you know about that, if anything?
I believe at one time it might have been Joint Army Navy, but it was an Army project, and you can go online and see the some of the visual conceptual material that the Army put out, and it was definitely real, and it was going to use the same rockets and technology that they used in Mercury, and then I think subsequently the Gemini stuff. Right. And you can totally see where they were going to do this with the same technology that we have been told and led to believe was strictly NASA. So, you have to ask yourself, okay, did they really do it? And it's just classified, or was it something that didn't come to fruition? You have to decide that for yourself.
Well, I don't believe they ever did it. No, but at that time, my God, Walter, some lunatic back in D.C., now that's not saying much. There's a hell of a lot of lunatics back there, but wanted to nuke the moon, send an atomic warhead to detonate on the bloody moon. Yeah. Now, I think this plan was probably to show the Soviets what our technological capability was. But my God, to put a nuclear bomb on the moon? Right.
Yeah, it's just, hey, let's just lob one up there, and just for show, and see what it does. And I if I'm not mistaken, I think some people have made or tried to make some hay out of that by asking the question, well, what was that really about? What were they really shooting at? What was there a reason to more than just the given reason?
Now, Corso maintained during all of this that they were in fact aware of hostile extraterrestrials. So I don't know.
That's the thing. You got Corso saying something like that. You've got the other circumstances, and you can see you can construct a context that you can see the logic in why people would think that, well, hey, maybe actually it was going to be an attack on hostiles. And of course we'll never know, as they say, but we might soon. We're entering an era where it's conceivable that the way I look at it is, I see it as the generation of that my grandchildren would be in when that happens, when that comes about. This might be the generation that going to the moon, by choice or by occupation, becomes a thing. And when that day comes, people are going to be able to get up there, and unless areas are restricted, which would be very interesting if they did that, people are going to be able to get up there and check these stories out. Was there actually a base dating back to the late 20th century? Is there this ancient structure or that anomalous structure? We're approaching that era now. Some people argue that now with modern telescopes and technology, why are we not seeing crystal clear photos of these areas where the anomalies might be? And, you could counter that question with, because they don't want us to, or, I don't know why we haven't seen those. But
for whatever it's worth, I believe there are. And I researched it for years.
Oh, I think there's stuff up there that
absolutely
we're going to be surprised when we learn about it. When we're told about it, I should say. I think there's stuff up there. Could be wrong, but I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this, and you've looked at it for years. I've looked at the stuff you've presented. I've looked at we've looked at the stuff other people have done, and wow. And again, it comes back to maybe the reason we haven't seen these crystal clear pictures is because they are indeed up there. Or, look, here's something I've never heard anyone talk about in relation to the moon anomalies, okay? We've all seen in recent years the photos during World War II in the Los Angeles area, okay, including places that are smack dab in the middle of towns and stuff, all right, where aerospace engineering was going on during the war. And what did they do? They spread massive tarps over entire towns, or town-sized facilities, and camouflage them to look like the desert and hills and terrain. So if enemy craft flew over, they wouldn't see McDonnell Douglas or, Douglas aircraft or the facilities to be able to know where it's at, to be able to bomb it. Now, who's to say that once interest was put on the moon and these anomalies, that as cameras got better and telescopes got better, who's to say they haven't camouflaged the stuff that's up there? And that's why if we take pictures, I mean, people are already suspicious of the face on Mars, and, oh, here it is. It's nothing. It's just a dust hill that got, blown, away. Well, people already suspect that we're not being shown the real Cydonia plane, or that they purposely destroyed the face, So
well, you're familiar with Dr. John Brandenburg's work,
yes,
where he discovered what he claims have been at least 2 nuclear devices detonated on Mars.
Yes.
He found the residue, the xenon 129.
Uh-huh. And his colleagues did not dispute that. They say that the science backs it up.
Exactly. Yes.
So, to me, it's like going back to this whole thing. People talk about, you're going back talking about the last couple of years. Well, isn't it as exciting that? And it's like, well, it would be if I could trust it, but it just it doesn't smell right. And I'm somebody who's convinced that these things really do come, that some of them, not all of them, not as many as people want to believe do, and not as many are assumed to have, but enough of them do come from, to me, it's logical. There's other habitable planets, for crying out loud. There's other civilizations. There's going to be many more advanced than us technologically, and they know how to travel across space. And I think they have, and they do come here. And, and this has been going on God knows how long. And we're going to find worlds. We're going to find that, I think ultimately they're going to just tell us that, yeah, there was a darn war on Mars ages ago. And there you go, folks. I think we'll ultimately just be told that. And what's going to drive that is as activities in space, as human human activity in space expands, be it through industry or scientific exploration or military operations now, you're going to need personnel. And the more people you're putting up there, the more that this opportunity to go into space is going to come within the reach of the common person, the common man and woman. Okay. And as that happens, you're going to see more revealed about what they actually know. And we are already seeing it, I think.
Well, let's take a look at something. And this is something that I worked on back in the 90s. I at the time I had been in debates with people like Seth Shostak and others from SETI. If we were to discover, or let us say, Walter, that the SETI people discovered a signal coming in from, let's say 50,000 light years away. In our galaxy, okay? Chances are they would possibly announce it. I mean, my God, it was sent 50,000 years ago, all right? Where were we as a species 50,000 years ago?
Right. Some would argue, though, that when you look at the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and the other Vimanic texts, that 50,000 years ago, we had a civilization that might have been able to answer that.
But what if they discovered a signal coming from the vicinity of Jupiter?
Oh boy.
Would they announce that?
That's just it. Would they? I don't know. I don't know. And in our present times and the times leading up to now, I would venture to say no. I would venture to say they'd keep that under wraps if they could.
Exactly. Why?
Well, you and I both know knowledge. Intelligence is knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Right. And here is something that, quite frankly, maybe a signal from 50,000 light years away, or a million, or let's say 200 million years ago, signals left our closest galaxy neighbor. That is no great shake, right?
Right.
No great shake because, hey, the time that it took to get here, there weren't even human beings when it left. But something from, let's say, a light year away, well, that's a different ball of wax.
Yeah.
And people would go crazy. I really believe today. I used to think that people could handle it, but I'm not sure now, Walter, that they could.
Particularly this year. I mean, look what people can't handle being at home for 2 weeks with their own spouses and children without acting like a-holes. I mean, we've all seen it. I've seen it here in my neighborhood. So, I'm like you. I used to think, oh, heck, we're the generation that grew up with, Day the Earth Stood Still, Klaatu, Close Encounters, and E.T., and, all that stuff. But, I mean, again, people can't handle just, the quarantine for a couple of weeks without losing their minds. So, yeah, I think you might be right. I think we might still be in a time when it could flip people out. My personal position is, so what? I think when the time comes, it's time to let that cat out of the bag. Hey, we're not alone. Get over it. Get used to it. I think they should announce it,
But then on the other hand, what's it going to do to the stock market? What's it going to do to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, well, I'll tell you exactly what I think it'll do to the stock market. I think the stock market will love it because we'll be one step closer to the resources off this planet. The boys that play the stock market, if you pay attention to the financial stuff that, Joseph Farrell, Catherine Austin Fitts, and some of these other folks talk about, they're already playing finance games reflective of the potential for resources, mineral resources and such off planet. I think they're ready for that. So I personally think the stock market would love it.
Well, you're right. I mean, if we ever get the technology that would allow us to go out into the asteroid belts.
Yep, step at a time. But there's the moon, there's Mars, there's the planets too. There's the stuff closer than the asteroid belt. But you're right. When we can get to the asteroid belt and start mining that, that'll be a bonanza, as they used to say, in resources. So I personally think they've been wanting this for a long time. I think they're ready for it. I think if they were to announce, hey, somebody sent an intelligence signal and they're coming soon, they're here, here's where they're at. Well, what that does is, what that's going to do. The minute that they go open with any contact we have with a non-Earth advanced civilization that's traveled space and has come here, regardless, even if it's hostile, especially if it's hostile, we are going to have to immediately focus on notching up our game with these technologies, space travel technologies. We're going to have to, particularly if they're hostile. But if they're not hostile, even if they're friendly, there's going to be an exchange of knowledge, and one of the things we'll benefit from that relationship is, they'll do that thing that Scotty does in Star Trek 4. Where he goes over to the keyboard and clickety-clack and, gives them transparent aluminum. They're like, whoa!
Okay, now let me bounce something else off you. And I've talked to a number of other guests about this. Yeah. Let me preface it first by saying, back in the very early 90s, about 89 or 90, I had traveled down to Las Vegas to see, among other people, John Lear. Oh. This was at the height of the Bob Lazar hysteria. Okay. When Lazar became known, and hey, I worked out at Area 51 at this place called S4, all that, right? Mm-hmm. And I was in John Lear's den, and I was looking at some magazines he had there. He had gotten a telephone call, and I was reading this article where an aviation writer, going under a pseudonym of Al Fricke, was talking about things being flown in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas drool, indicating that we at that point, this is 30 years ago, we at that point had no conception of how advanced our technology actually was. And of course, black budget stuff, military stuff, etc.
Sure.
Now, today, it's 2020 right now, Walter. Yeah. God only knows what we may or may not have achieved by now. Do you believe we have advanced technology that is currently operating under wraps?
Yes. I think it's not as advanced as people's imagination would like to assume, but yes, of course. I mean, just in aerospace alone, you know how this works. When the military says this is our fastest, highest flying, most advanced aircraft, and this is its ceiling, this is its limitations, you know that the rule of thumb, the truth is that ceiling is going to be higher than they're admitting, that speed's going to be faster than they're admitting, the technology is going to be, probably actually what we would say, rule of thumb, 20 years ahead of what we're told it is. So
or
within
more.
Reason, yes, I do think so.
Okay, now I talked to one of them, John Brandenburg. I talked to him both on and off the record. He believes we have or are on the cusp of having something along the lines of a gravity drive.
Yeah. I think they've definitely played with that. And, I'm one of those who goes along with the speculation that they used something like that something, spooky technology like that in the Apollo program, and the evidence, suggested evidence for that is when you watch the lunar module lift off from the moon to return to, the command module, and just the way it pops up. Just doesn't seem like simple retro rocket or rocket technology, and so if we have what looks like evidence of what you're saying dating back, my gosh, to the late 1960s, and as you said, this is 2020, well, yeah, I would agree with John there that to some extent we have dabbled with that and developed it to some degree, some reasonable degree. Sure.
Okay, now I'm by nature, and my wife gives me grief about this frequently. I can be a very suspicious character.
Mm-hmm. You've been a criminal investigator like I have. I mean, come on. We have our reasons for being the way we are.
Well, yeah, but try to explain that to your wife. I mean,
yeah, I know.
But anyway, let me get back to my point. I have often watched with great interest live feeds coming from the ISS, the International Space Station.
Cool. Okay.
And yeah, it is cool. And, Walter, stuff will fly into the frame that's obviously weird.
Yeah.
And suddenly they'll lose the camera feed. This doesn't happen once. It doesn't happen twice. It happens all the bloody damn time.
Yeah.
Now, that tells me one of several possibilities. Number one, hell of a lot of aliens dropping by here. Are they fueling up or what? Or, yeah, there's our damned Earth battleship. By God, let's cut the feed on that. We can't be having people see that. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, and let's throw a bone to the people that think guys like you and I are crazy true believers. Okay, let's for the moment take ET out of the equation. You're up there in space. Everybody knows that orbit is full of space junk, right? The public knows that. This gets talked about. There's just all sorts of junk up there, for going on, 70 years of us being up in space one way or another that we know about.
Sure.
Okay. You've got a station up there that you got to have personnel. Okay. You're talking about life support and protecting them. Well, just for the simple reason that if some of that space junk is going to come, hurtling into your station, wouldn't you want some means to blast it away or divert it away? Well, yeah. So would you not put some, and we know laser technology exists. Okay. We know military aircraft will use it for sighting purposes. We know they've been developing, we know there are lasers that are used to cut, right? Well, why not? A space-based, couple of lasers up on the ISS to be used to divert space junk that might damage the ISS and threaten the astronauts. So, looking at it from that perspective, even the hardcore coldest skeptic, would have to see the logic in, well, that makes sense because there is a bunch of space junk up there and you can't just constantly navigate around it. There's going to be some stuff that's going to be hurtling at you. So now bring ET back into it. Let's say you've developed these technologies to protect yourself from space junk, and so you just happen to have it on the station just to protect yourself from space junk, but you also know that there's somebody up there lobbing stuff at you, or there's somebody up there shooting stuff at you. So to me, both reasons to me provide a very logical, rational explanation for why I think, yes, they would have something on that station to defend the station, either against space junk damaging them or, some foe that's up there. Even if the foe, okay, again, let's take ET out of it. what if the Chinese have something up there that they want to, shoot at the ISS, or and the what if the Soviets had something up there? What if any other nation? You're going to want something, to defend that station, I would think. So to me, again, ET, hostile nation, or just space junk, doesn't it just make way too much sense that they have a means for dealing with these things because of the potential threat? I think it makes total sense. I think it's logical and rational to make that assumption that they do. And I think the reason those cameras go down is they just don't want us to know about it. Now, if it was purely for space junk, we would know about it. They would tell us if it was purely for space junk, right? Hey, isn't it cool that how do we protect the space station astronauts from space junk? We have lasers and we blast it. So the fact that they would obscure the camera view for whatever reason, shut off the camera, what does that suggest? That suggests that there is something there, and they are blasting stuff that's being shot at us from hostile nations or hostile ETs, okay? Or they've got the things on there, they're using it for space junk, but it's there to also use against hostile, nations in space or aliens, and they don't want us to know about it. You see, there's all sorts of reasons you could come up with why they wouldn't tell us, or at least one or two good ones. But personally, my opinion is I think that's what's going on. I think they're obscuring something when they shut those cameras off, when it goes out, so to speak. I think they're obscuring something from the public, definitely.
Absolutely. And whatever it is, okay. Now, the astronauts that go up there, now this is something that I've had over the years, many conversations with many people that just can't understand why, if in fact the astronauts saw something they regarded as inexplicable, they wouldn't talk about it. They don't understand how that works, do they, Walter?
You mean the people who don't understand why they wouldn't? No, they don't. They don't have a concept of why they wouldn't talk about it. They, the people that have worked, in certain fields totally get it, but the regular civilians don't.
Now, like, take Story Musgrave, for example. Now, years ago, he, in fact, saw something in Earth orbit that appeared to be like a long snake or worm or something undulating as it flew by. Are you familiar with that?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I seem to recall that. I can't remember the details, but I do recall this story vaguely.
Right. Well, in fact, they still to this day claim they don't know what that was. There are those out there that believe it was some type of extra atmospheric life organism of some kind. Yeah. Now, I certainly wouldn't say that's not possible and within the realm of possibility, but I would find it highly unlikely. It's kind of like John Glenn seeing, or was it Gordon Cooper, that saw the fireflies up there?
Glenn.
Was it? Yeah,
Glenn. Yeah, that was John Glenn. Yeah, exactly. It was something that ended up being a very mundane explanation, and at the time he didn't know what it was, and he for a moment thought it was some living thing almost. And of course, what did that do? That tipped off the guys at Mission Control. The heat shield's burning up.
Yeah, or something. Sure.
Yeah. And, that's why they have a team working those things. So you got a bunch of brains, working split second thinking, just like in Apollo 13, the way they science and engineered, saving their own lives and getting back, which was, just shows you, and those guys, I believe those guys were all three. They were all three military guys, right? The Apollo 13 crew, they had all been military guys, right? But they were still.
it's possible. I'm not
Well,
sure.
Lovell was. Yeah, I think Lovell was, right? And yeah, I'm pretty sure, because back then it was, but they were also scientists. They were engineers. They were, they're not just, flyboys, not just pilots, guys that had been pilots. These guys were scientists and engineers. And I mean, that people can watch the movie and they can read about the Apollo 13 thing, but, with the help of the techs and the scientists on the ground, these guys still had the intellect, the intellectual wherewithal, to understand what they were being instructed to do, but even guys like that, in the case of John Glenn, he wasn't a dumb guy, but in that moment, to him, in the context of what he was experiencing, he didn't realize it was his heat shield burning up. He thought, oh, what are these weird, creatures and stuff? So anybody, can be, their assumptions, they can mislead themselves, even if it's just for a moment, into what they're experiencing up there.
Are you familiar with the Chinese astronaut that went up a few years ago, single crewman, flying in orbit? And this was when China just first got their manned missions moving. And as this guy is in orbit, I had what the heck was that television show? I saw this on one of those, those mystery TV shows. As he's in orbit, suddenly he hears a knocking on a spacecraft.
Oh, wow.
Like there was something out there knocking to come in. Right. And this happened off and on his whole mission. And the poor guy was freaking out. He didn't have a clue what the hell it was. He didn't tell anybody because, if he'd have called down, hey, mission control. Yeah. Somebody's knocking on my hatch. They'd say this poor guy went bonkers. But yeah, and they never really did have a good explanation on what in the heck that was. Then he discovered other Chinese astronauts after that some of them experienced the same thing.
See, what comes to my mind is there's some engineering issue with
exactly. Yes. Would have
Yeah.
to be, right? Would
Yeah,
have to
well,
be.
yeah, like something to do with maybe the pressurization or whatever. I don't know. Something to do with when the craft is up there. The conditions of being up there. It's just like an old house creaks. There's something in their craft that's creaking, so to speak, in the conditions of space. And that's probably ultimately, if we haven't heard anything about this in years, they probably figured that out and solved,
Yeah, but that would be a hell of a wake-up call, wouldn't it?
Oh, I know. Wouldn't it be a great story, right? Something knocking from the and if I'm not mistaken, I've heard stories like that or something, going on out there. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and the frustrating thing for us, folks like us, down here, that are interested in this, is we're down here. We don't get to go up there. We don't get to see firsthand. So we're trying to answer our questions and solve these mysteries with the information we're given, with the information, that we can, the little pieces we can get of the picture. And when there are those involved who are purposely obscuring things, on top of that and adding that layer of fog to it, it makes it both difficult to discern the truth, but also makes an environment rich in, the imagination going in the wrong direction. And, ultimately, I like to think, I think that, in mine and your lifetime, we're gonna at least be, we're gonna live to see the announcement that, yeah, we know there's intelligent life out there. Now, whether we live long enough to see them come here openly, I don't know.
I don't, I'm at the point in my life when it wouldn't make a damn difference to me whether they do or not.
Yeah,
I'm convinced, but hey,
Yeah.
I want to stay in town, so to speak. This is a metaphor, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to stay in town, but I want to go to a different section of town. Now, you and I share another interest.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, and I'm sure you will recall this, you and I conducted an experiment on this very show
Oh, yeah.
when I was on a different network
Uh-huh.
dealing with remote viewing.
Yes.
Okay, now this is something that even now, after all this time, this is something that still, to an extent, blows my mind. Now, you'll find out as you start to go through that Beckham book, Walter, that he also deals with that. He kind of freaked out when I told him that Ingo Swann had been a friend of mine. Okay, the guy that designed the protocols for the DIA and CIA Stargate program. But have you still been toying with remote viewing in the last several years?
Ooh. I have been walking around it. I have become, I think I mentioned maybe last time, I had the honor to meet and became acquainted with Lynn Buchanan and the folks that he has personally trained and brought up. Very, very smart, very good folks with this stuff. What's interesting, Don, is I've come very close to jumping back into it, but a lot of people don't realize, because maybe they've never heard me talk about the remote viewing stuff, that my whole experience with that Empire of the Wheel investigation experience, that weird period of my life that was 7 years long and resulted in 3 books, that was singularly the most intensely weird period of my life, a life which has been weird for many years to begin with, but that was intense. And the whole thing, the gate to that opened as a result of remote viewing. So as I'm an adventurer, I'm an explorer, this stuff turns me on, okay? But I've experienced it firsthand, the incessant synchronicities, and all the weird stuff that goes with it, the light and the darkness that comes with it, all the weird stuff, okay? For a period of 7 years, it was pretty intense. So I can't help but think that my reluctance is, those 7 years were intense, and in an odd way, I loved every minute of it.
Do you think that?
But I've been reluctant to do it because that's a door that I know if I open again, I don't know exactly what's going to come through.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that you caused something to notice you?
Oh, God, yes. Or something that had noticed me years before, but decided to introduce itself. And I'll be honest, I actually, one day in a rose garden at the Citrus Park in Riverside, California, early in the Empire of the Wheel thing, in late 2007, I addressed who I thought was St. Catherine of Alexandria, who is actually the goddess Hecate. And I said to her by name, I invited her to show me something. And that I got up from there a few minutes later, went in my car, and as I was heading to the freeway to go home, I suddenly felt compelled to turn right on Victoria Boulevard. And I drove north on Victoria Boulevard, and that led me to people have heard me talk about. It's called the Prenda Quarry, and that was the gate. That was the day the gate really opened, and the gate had been open already because I'd been doing remote viewing.
Was that a wise thing to do?
that was the day she introduced herself. Was it a wise thing to do?
Yeah.
It all depends on what your perspective on life is. If commonly, probably not. But if you are at a point in your life, if you're somebody who you just wonder what's beyond that horizon, you wonder what's on the other side of the veil. If you're on that weird journey, it was almost like it was a necessary thing to do. I'm an altered person. I'm still me, but those 7 years, it started in late 2007, and in late 2014, I had the UFO experience, right? So you could almost say, did it culminate in that showing of whoever and whatever that thing was? You could interpret it that way. But it altered me. It altered me in many ways. And
all right, you just, Walter, gave me a segue. Okay. Yeah. Back in the late 80s, when I really jumped into this cesspool, mm-hmm. and I call it a cesspool for a reason. I was firmly convinced we were dealing with strictly nuts and bolts.
Right.
And over the course of the next 10 to 15 years, my thinking changed profoundly. Not that we're not dealing with nuts and bolts, but I also think we are dealing with other things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Things that might be of an ultra terrestrial genesis. Mm-hmm. In other words, a multi-dimensional thing. Perhaps also there's the possibility we could be dealing with the remnants of a lost civilization. Yeah. I mean, there are a number of possibilities.
Absolutely.
So my question to you is, it would sound to me like your experience you just described might have been coming from a dimensional rift or shift.
Yes, I personally think it has much more to do with entities, whatever, a source, having to do with that as opposed to my UFO was not an extraterrestrial thing. I have talked about in my work a group that I honestly first heard about in the writings in the late 80s by Jacques Vallée, the Tuatha De Danann. And here's what I think about that. I think there is a very ancient, very old group of, I hate to use the word beings, but let's call them that, who have been with us in this world. We have come, certain cultures have come to call them the Tuatha De Danann. I don't know if that's what they call themselves, but that group right there, that's the first clue to even begin to grasp who we might be dealing with. Now, some people get wrapped up in the strict, definition of the lore. Well, the lore says this, so it must be, the folklore says this, the mythology. It's like, no, you don't understand. Folklore and mythology is just the human filter, that has been put on, these beings. And there's certainly going to be, differences between the reality and the lore. So you can't get too locked in on what the lore says. And you certainly can't get too locked in on what the anthropologist skeptics, say. But I think that's what we're dealing with. I think that's what I was dealing with, because I did the research on this, and there is a thread connecting, for instance, Hecate to this mysterious culture, that we've come to call the Tuatha De Danann, and the UFO that I saw has an even more direct connection to that lore. So yeah, I think that's what I've been dealing with. I think that's what I opened myself up to. That's what introduced it. I honestly think it was there in my life longer before I realized what was going on. Because like I said, there's been a lot of weird stuff, but it finally it finally introduced itself to me in 2007. I think that's what happened. And, that's why, the remote viewing, I've been invited to do it. I mean, when I met Lynn Buchanan and I met the folks he trained, they invited me to practice with him and go back into the training and stuff. And it's encouraging and I'm inclined to do it, but then I'm reluctant. I still haven't done it. And I think that's because the experience taught me. In our community, we got a lot of people who think everything is just fun and games. Everything is wonderful, and it's always good to do this, that, and the other. Well, that's foolish. That's very foolish because, it's basic. Anybody with common sense knows there's light and darkness, okay? There's good and bad, all right? There's positive, there's negative. And with this stuff, it's the same thing. And you just, it's a be careful what you wish for. And if you step onto that path, the path will determine when you're through, not you.
Right.
So, and you never, am I completely off of it? I don't think so. Because things still, I for the rest of my life, I'll notice synchronicities. I'll notice the numerologies of this stuff. I'll sense presences and stuff. There's really no 100% going back. So, and I know there's people out there that haven't had these experiences and they're rolling their eyes and saying, oh, here we go. He's spooking it up. And here's the funny thing. I got family members that were here at this house when some of this weird stuff went on and witnessed it with me.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've always done, okay, when I've been at least, public with this stuff, is I've striven to be absolutely truthful and honest.
Yeah.
And I have a reputation for calling a spade a goddamn shovel, okay? It's just the way it is. And, if I say something, then it's because I've either seen it to be true or I know it to be true. And if somebody decides, well, he's full of it, hey, that's fine.
That's right.
That's their deal. Whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, you look, and people that have had real experiences know exactly what I'm talking about. You kind of, at some point, you cross a Rubicon where you honestly, sincerely, and with all due respect, no longer give a damn what people think about you or whether they believe you or not. You just quit caring. You just don't care if people believe you or not. You know what you experienced. You know what's real. You know what happened. And, you eventually reach that point where you just don't care. And I reached that point. For me, it was in 2010. So for, 10 years, I've been, it's like, hey, believe it or don't, I don't care. So it's, it comes down to.
Sometimes in this field, you simply enter a building full of smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And it's designed, I personally think that in many cases, it's designed specifically for that.
Oh, sure. Games are played with us. Games are being played with. I'm not the first person to say this, but I agree. When you hear people talk about this, of course, these entities that we're talking about, okay, they play games with us all the time. That's where the whole concept of the trickster comes from. And it ultimately, you do learn that it's always for the advancement of your awareness, your understanding, your wisdom. But it's the nature of the beast. And can it drive people crazy and mad? Yes, it can.
And it has.
It has. And I have some colleagues that, I worry about, because it has pushed them, to a point beyond, in some way. Well, in that regard, where I've gone, I've been more cautious, in certain regards. And it is not a path that, is purely safe. It is fraught with hazard.
Walter, believe it or not, my friend, we have completed hour number 2. We only have roughly a little over a half a minute. Any final words or anything that you're up to that you want to plug before we go?
No, just thanks for having me on. Of course, I have my live stream at Walter Bosley channel at YouTube. And of course, I have empirethewheel.blogspot.com, which you can see, essays. Sometimes I go months without putting something there, but there's plenty of stuff there to read. And also, my books are print on demand only at lulu.com. Just go to lulu.com, put my name in, or if you know the title of one of my books, and it should take you to, a link for the Walter Bosley pages there, and you can see all my books there. But I don't sell on Amazon, so don't look for me there. But again, thanks for having me on. It was great to talk.
Oh, hey, this has been fantastic. And look, I want to have you back a hell of a lot sooner.
Oh, heck yeah.
So at any rate, Walter, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for tonight. We will be back. And in the meantime, keep those eyes pointed up, keep your ear to the ground, and we will catch you on the next one. Good night.